also created crises outside the US after revealing new details of Epstein's ties to prominent people in politics, finance, business, and academia. To help us unpack this right now, we are joined by Ryan Dawson, geopolitical analyst, joining us from Seoul. He's one of the leading experts, if not the leading expert, when it comes to Epstein's files. Ryan has been researching and documenting the Epstein files and the Epstein case since the late 2000s. Ryan, thank you for your time. This newly surfaced FBI interview directly contradicts Donald Trump's claim that he knew nothing about Epstein's crimes. Based on the broader record right here, what kind of ramifications are we or should we expect for Donald Trump, politically speaking?
Yeah, it's almost impossible for him to not have known. They had a falling out in 2004 over a real estate dispute. They were both trying to grab property from Abe Gossman, who had to file Chapter 11, so it was a fireside sale, and Trump won that bid, and that is what caused the rift, not Epstein's behavior around little kids or Maxwell recruiting girls. It was a real estate deal gone wrong. Of course, once there's an investigation started and Trump learns that, he's the first person to call and then start to rat on him. He can take that one of two ways. Either he's lying about not knowing, or because he was friendly with Epstein and Maxwell, or he was lying about not knowing because he did not want them to learn that he was the rat that told on them. Girls had been telling on Epstein since 1996. They told the FBI and the police, but the ball never moved. It wasn't until an American billionaire called in 2006 that they could no longer ignore it, and that was Donald Trump. So he can spin it that way. But more of these files are going to go out. Many people in Trump's own cabinet, like Howard Lutnick, are in the files, also lied, met with Epstein, had positive relationships. He's going to have to fire a lot of the people around him. So if he knew all of this, then he should know about his cohorts. And if he doesn't, what does that show about him and who he picks to be in his cabinet?
That's right. Ryan, Epstein is often framed as an individual criminal, but you've argued this was a network. From your research, I wanted to ask, who was Epstein really working for?
Epstein worked for the Israeli state. His principal backer was Les Wexner. Wexner has now been finally named as a co-conspirator. I've been saying that for 10 years. The Wexner Foundation, was the original origin of that, came straight out of the same people, the Haganah terrorist group that formed the State of Israel, the Jewish Agency, and the United Jewish Appeals. The very first president of the Wexner Foundation was Rabbi Herbert Friedman, straight out of the JA, right out of the Sonborn Institute, the same people that financed the illegal theft of uranium and the illegal theft of weapons that went to Palestine to help future Israelis do the Nakba and remove about 800,000 people off the land so they could steal it. This is Ted Kulik. This is Ben Gurion, who became the first prime minister of Israel. This was the group that forms the backbone of Wexner. It wasn't his modeling agencies. It wasn't Victoria's Secret. It wasn't LL Brands. These people had seed money from the Israeli state. Of course, Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was an Israeli spy. And then, more on the nose, Ari Ben Menashe, who worked for Israeli intelligence, said that Epstein worked for Israeli intelligence. So did Steve Hoffenberg, his business partner, who went to jail for a Ponzi scheme that he and Epstein cooked up at Tower Financial. Epstein worked for the Israelis. He donated to the IDF. He donated to Friends of Israel. He donated to all the pro-Zionist groups. He talks about Gentiles as goyim. He was a Jewish supremacist. And they're trying to spin it and say he worked for Russia, or that his creepy little music room was a mosque. It wasn't. It was modeled after a bathhouse. They won't be able to put the genie back in the bottle. All his cohorts, all his financing, they're all from pro-Zionist groups, and that was his agenda. He couldn't even get a visa in Russia, for example, but he's done plenty for Israel and donating to Israeli causes, and everyone around him is a hardcore Zionist. His lawyer is Alan Dershowitz, super Zionist. His principal financiers were Wexner and Leon Black, two super Zionists. This was an Israeli operation. It was Israeli intelligence. He was spying on U.S. Science and technology. So you should see a disproportionate number of targeting for people in those industries so they can steal trade secrets for Israel.
Ryan, I wanted you to expand more, please, if you can, in this time, on why are some people telling that Russia was involved in this? And also, were these people on Epstein Island, or islands as you call it, were these people invited to the island because of their involvements in politics, finance, academia, or they later turned into figures into politics, finance, and academia again because they were invited to Epstein Island before?
Correct. He had two islands. It doesn't really matter if they went to the island or not because the same things went on at his other properties in New York and Florida, New Mexico, and Paris, Ohio, and in the UK. But if you went to the island, if you went to Little St. Jeffrey's, as he nicknamed it, Little St. James is the real name, there's no reason to go there. There's only one reason to go there. Whereas you could maybe play it off about a business meeting or something in New York, there's really no reason to visit his island. But Jeffrey Epstein and Glenn Maxwell were buying island properties, just like Richard Branson, who there were sex slave parties on Branson's Island from the NXIVM cult, run by Keith Rainier, now in prison. That was financed to the tune of $100 million by the Bronfman family and other super Zionist billionaires out of Canada, who also pushed money into the Wexner Foundation to finance Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Epstein and Wexner were pumping money into what was called Reporting, now called Carbine Security Agency, for an Israeli prime minister. And Epstein met with several prime ministers, Ehud Olmert as well, and also President Herzog, President Moshe Katsav. He knew everybody in Israel.
And my final question before I let you go, Brian, looking ahead, is this just another scandal that is going to fade away very soon, or could it mark a turning point?
No, this is different. And the reason he targeted academia too was you have to understand that private companies do research and development teamed up with universities. Universities get government grants to do the research. And so if you are owning that donor class, like Bill Gates, for example, pumping in millions to MIT, then you have access to whatever trade secrets they uncover as they partner with private businesses. And they did that with a company called Microwire, whose technology is being used in the war in Ukraine and Russia right now. So it was very sensitive. This is not going to go away. This is different. The reason they blamed it on Russia is because that worked before. It worked with when they said Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian hoax and 51 intelligence agencies said so, or individual officers said so. It was not a hoax. Hunter's laptop is real. He was cavorting with prostitutes, doing drugs and white-collar crime. It's absolutely real. But they were able to make that away back when Jack Dorsey owned Twitter and all of the other media is tightly controlled for Zionist interests. They don't dare speak against it. But under Musk, it's not going to work. It only works when they have a monopoly, which they don't have anymore. And it's up-scrolled. It's to a lesser extent TikTok outside of the US. They don't own all of it. It's Substack, Rumble, and things. The monopoly's gone. So the truth is out. And so they can't make this go away the way they did Hunter Biden. They just said it was a Russian hoax. They tried that, and everyone's laughing at them. It's that he planned a coup against Putin with Boris Nikolic. Boris Nikolic was his third pick to implement his will, by the way, after Darren Endike and Richard Kahn. And these people were involved in pushing hush money around to victims. That's what JP Morgan Chase was sued over, and they lost, as well as Deutsche Bank. They had to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars to hundreds of victims. And in the cases, it says for commercial sex purposes. Now, these weren't all to Epstein. He spread that around. So we're in an almost too big to jail situation. Like the public outcry, they're not going to forget scandals. They've lost their minds. Scandals. They've lost their minds. People are retiring right now, but the only ones to go to jail were Jean-Luc Brunel, Maxwell, and Epstein. Everybody else in his ring is walking free. Why aren't they talking to Sarah Kellen, for example? Well, I've given a list to Thomas Massey. I've tried to. Here's all the people you need to subpoena. This is who you need to talk to get to the bottom of it. It's just a question of access, but I'm glad to see some fruits of my labor finally coming.
Hopefully.
I'm not going to let this go, and I don't think the public, this is very different than anything else. They are enraged about Epstein.
I mean, are there going to be effects that you are going to see clearly in the next 3 years of Trump's presidency? And so many argued that as the Iran-US tensions were going to go away, there were these new files, 3 million files. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Ryan. 3 new million files were released by the DOJ just to make Donald Trump act on Iran. Your thoughts on that as well?
There's 3 million files that haven't been. There's 6 million files they have. Only half have been released, and they're all heavily redacted. Apparently, they automatically just redacted any female names lazily to protect female victims, but almost all of Epstein's recruiters were females. So they need to get in and start unredacting a lot of that. Trump follows what Israel said. Whether there was Epstein files released or not, he was going to attack Iran. That was way back in the first war. He did attack Iran on Israel's behalf. He's going to do that because of Adelson and a lot of money in AIPAC and pressure. You look at his cabinet, it's a bunch of Christian Zionists. He was going to do that anyway. What releasing the Epstein files has done has dragged that timeline down. He has to deal with domestic issues now. And what's really preventing an attack on Iran is Iran's own strength. They have so many ballistic missiles, they could obliterate Israel. And Netanyahu is panicking, so he's meeting with Trump now, and they're racing against the clock because Les Wexner has been subpoenaed, and he has to talk before Congress on the 18th of February. And then you have Hillary Clinton the 27th, Bill Clinton the 28th, if they can agree to conditions. And more subpoenas have to go out. Like I said, I have a list of who they need to be talking to. The clock favors Iran too. They can outpace defensive missiles with offensive missiles all day because they're cheaper to make, and they already have thousands of short range. So I don't see how serious the U.S. can be about an attack when they send one carrier out of 11. If you were serious about attacking Iran, it would be more than the USS Lincoln. I think it was just to create pressure to try and get a deal. They hide the deal, say, oh, we're trying to get lower enrichment, which Trump said he obliterated. Apparently not. It's not about the nuclear program at all. It's about ballistic missiles that can reach Israel. If Iran were to lose those, Israel would have nothing in its way to further their land annexation and ethnic cleansing, and which is what America and Israel want. And Iran's not going to shelf their ballistic missiles. And Trump is searching for a face-saving way to back down right now.
Yes. Ryan Dawson, geopolitical analyst, joining us from Seoul. Thank you.